So we have a file to download today. Well, actually, the file that we have to download today, we may or may not get to. So you know we're making this form for editing the information about products. Well, these are just a bunch of pictures, images of those products. So it's kind of fun to be able to get that to actually show the picture of the product as well, but I'm not certain that we're going to get there. I want to make sure that I've given you everything you need to be able to complete the project on this. So if we have time, we'll get to this, but don't worry about that so much. Instead, let's go ahead and download the file that we left off with last Wednesday. So if you totally followed along in the stuff that you were making with me, like you were right there, then you can just pick up there. I haven't done anything since we finished class. Otherwise, go ahead and download that file, and that's where we'll begin. So you'll remember that we're making a user form. What was the big kind of new idea that we introduced last time we were together about forms? Working with forms brings up a new concept, something we haven't dealt with before. It's something called an objects are going to receive these to be able to know when they're supposed to do something. A little louder? Well, it's an event. So remember, an object's going to receive an event. So typically, the event you're interested in to make a button do something is a click event. But we saw last time how we could actually respond to the mouse move. When the mouse moved over the button, we could make it do something. So that's the thing that's kind of really different for us and new to us, is that when we're making code on a user form, we have to think about when do we want the code to execute. We got to think in terms of object and event. Now, let's just kind of review how far we got. So I'm going to come back and open up the form product form and press play, and we'll see what we got. So we got a label put up here that's got the product ID. We've got the name. That's kind of a funny looking name, but I guess it's the name. 16-inch plain toe buffalo size 13. These are rubber boots as the category, and they're in the outdoor department. So I think we got, we didn't quite get this writing out. So right now, I think it'll properly put the right checkbox here for which one is selected. But if I change this to apparel, kind of another reasonable place to put boots, if I say OK, it's not going to change that there on C66. Yeah, so that's where we left off. So let's go ahead and pick up there. So we've got our show data here that is reading the data from the worksheet. So data is the name of our worksheet. We'll kind of look over here. We've named our products worksheet is actually the code name is data. So we're referring to data. That's where that's coming from. Control minus. So we're reading from that product sheet. We're looking on a particular cell. Somebody remind me what row is. What does row do? Do you remember what that is? We set up row as a module level variable so that it would have the scope to be accessed from multiple different modules, or from same module, but multiple different procedures. So when we're initializing the form, when the form's first coming up into memory, we are saying, hey, let's make that row equal to wherever the active cell is. We're just going to read the row from the active cell, and we're going to put that into the module level variable row, so that when we show data, we can just use that to say that's the current row that we're on. So we're now looking at what's in column C of that row, which is right here. It's where the category is. And we're saying, listen, if it's outdoor, then set the value of the outdoor option button to true, right? It's like we're kind of telling the code, click on the outdoor option button. Or if it's apparel, click on the apparel button, or if it's hunting and so forth. So now we need something analogous for save data. So I'm going to copy this block and put it down here in save data. And we'll do something that's probably not really what was the select case statement was meant for. But it's so parallel here that will work nicely for us. So now when we're saving the data, I have to write back out to this cell. So in each case, I'm going to be writing back out to the workbook. But what I need to do is I need to come here and say, well, listen, I need to know if the outdoor value is true. If it's the outdoor value, then I want to write the word outdoor out. If the option button for the apparel is checked, then I want to write that one out. So here's what I'm going to do, something a little bit strange. I'm just going to put, and remember what we're looking for is we're comparing with the select case statement, some expression here with the individual expressions that are in our different case elements. And the first one that we find that's a match between those is the one that we're going to execute. So I'm just going to say, listen, I'm going to put the expression here of true. And then in my case, I'm actually going to be looking for, like when the outdoors value, or when the option outdoor value, now remember, this is true or false. So I'm looking for when this, if this one is equal to that, so if they're both true, then I'm ready to write some data out. And what do I want to write out in that case? I want to write out outdoor. I'm going to kind of copy this structure in. So we've got general will be our other case, our else case. And I've got apparel, the apparel, hunting will be hunting. So now that should write out the proper value. The way we've done this is just a little bit strange because normally we have a value that can, an expression that can take on different values here, and we're just trying to find the one that has that value. But here we're saying, listen, we're going to compare true with whichever one of these we bump into first that's true. So it seems a little bit backwards from the way that we're used to using the select case statement. But we're just looking for equality between those two expressions. And I think that will do it. Let me just give it a test, and then I'll leave the code up there for a little bit more for you to look at it. So here I'm going to change this outdoor on 57 to apparel. We'll say OK. Oops. I got two end selects. That's no good. And that did change it to apparel. So I feel pretty good about that code. Questions? Okay, well then let's move on to our next kind of control. So what do we have here? We've got text box, combo box, option buttons. Let's go ahead and do now the list box. In a sense, this one's a little bit out of order. Maybe I should have done this one before we did the combo box because the combo box is a combination of a list and a text box. So it has properties of both. But the thing about a list is that it allows you to be able to see multiple choices at the same time. So whereas the combo box, you only see one, you see the selected one, and you have to drop down the list to see what there is to choose from. The list box just has the list showing all the time. You pick the one that you want. Or what makes it a little more interesting is that this one allows you to pick multiple items. So why don't we use this? I'm going to go ahead and bring a label on for this, and I'm going to call this the discount. So I'm just going to change the caption. I won't be changing this through code, so I'm not going to worry about changing the name, but I will change the caption to discount. And there are several different discount schemes that we're kind of making available. And the idea here is I'd like, if we got something we really need to get rid of, maybe we'll have two different kind of, actually, discount's not the right term, it's promotion. Discount is one of the promotions. A certain discount is one of the promotions. Let me change this to promotion. And I'll call the list box I'll give it a name, change its name property to LST promo. It's a list box, yeah. So remember the list box is just the next one after the combo box. So that one right there is the list box. We load the list box the same way that we load the combo box, is that we just add items into it. So let's go ahead and go to our show data. Actually, this one we'll want to do in our initialize. So I'm going to double click here. Here's initialize, and here's the code. Maybe I'll put a little comment here. This is where we are loading the options for the combo box. What's in the combo box? I forgot. Categories. Load the categories to choose from. And I'm going to, it's so close, I'm going to copy that whole block. Whoops, sorry, that's a comment for wrong language. Now here, we're going to load the promotions to choose from. We're still going to set R back to 2, and our promotions are on that list sheet as well. Let's take a look at where they are. They're in columns A and B. This is a little different because we have these numbers that we're using to keep track of them. So I'm just going to load them right here out of column B. So that'll be column B. Do until that sheet. We're going to add one to it. Now we have this as LST promo is going to take the value from column B. So that should load up our promotions. Just a loop that starts from row 2 and goes down as long as there's data. The trick here is going to be to allow the user to select as many items as the user wants to select. I mean, might apply every single promotion to a particular product. And somehow we'll have to remember those promotions and then be able to display those back when the user kind of comes back to this on the form. And so that's going to take a little bit of trickery, but I want to make sure that we cover this because that's probably the hardest part of the project. So I want you to kind of have seen it once so that you can do it on your own. All right, but I'm going to go ahead and run this and let's see if that loads my options up in there. Looks like I've only got 4 to choose from right now, and I could probably make this a little bit wider. So I'll go ahead and do that. And we can see that we can, just choose one and it stays chosen. How do we choose 2? I'm holding down the control key or the shift key, nothing. All we do is get one selected. So let's start off by getting it to allow us to select multiple ones, and then we'll talk through the process about how to get this to show the right one. It's a little bit different than anything we've seen so far. So allowing it to select multiple, there's a property called multi-select. So over here is a multi-select property, and there are 3 different ways that we can do multiple, or 3 different ways we can set this multi-select. The default is none, no multiple select, just select one. The second one is select multi, and now if we do that, you will turn each one off or on with a click individually. So right now, if you have one selected, you click a different one, it unselects the one that you had clicked before, that you had selected before. With multi-select, let's go ahead and take a look at it. With multi-select, with multi-select, now I can turn each one on and off individually. And for a small set like this, that might be the way that we'd want to do it. Just, just turn each one on and off. Now, if you have a longer list, you want to be able to hold shift click to be able to do a whole group of them. Well, that's just the next choice. So with that selected, multi-select, we can make extended, and then now control click will behave the way that we just did it. So I have to hold my control key down, and then I can click each one on and off individually. Or if I have one selected and hold the shift key down, I can get the whole set at once, or wherever I'm clicking to. And I'll probably just leave it right there for that particular setting. Okay. So now let's take a look and see how we have this, how this data is expressed. So we'll close this, come back to my code, and how do we have different promotions? I'm not even sure we have any promotions recorded. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, here's promotions in column H. So the way that we're keeping track of which promotion, and this is kind of a tough thing, we've got to somehow be able to put two pieces of information into this cell. And the way that we're doing it here is saying, listen, just put the identifier of that promotion and make a comma-separated list right here. It doesn't look so well on this sheet, but the idea is we'll be editing it with the form anyway. So now what we have to do when we're on this one is that we have to select two different items. We've got to select number 1 and number 4. So that's about what we're ready to do. Should we do it? Are we ready? Let's take a look. So that will be now when we're showing the data. So I'll come down to show data, and maybe I'll put a comment here, select the correct promotion. Now we have a couple of ways that we can do it. We can either look at the number that's here. We could kind of split this into we could make this into an array, right? There's a split function that will take this and make it into an array quite easily. And then we can look at the 1 and the 4, and then we can say those are the ones that we have to select. Or we could look across all the options that we have in the box, and we could ask, is that number in the list that's in the cell? We can go either way. And we might do both ways, just so we can kind of see a couple of different approaches for it. Let's go ahead and do the first one first, where we split that into an array and work with that. Where am I? Code. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and declare a variable. I'll just call it data. Maybe I'll call it promo list. We'll just call it promos. P-R-O-M-O-S. As, what type should we use? Ultimately, this is going to be an array of the elements that are in the cell. And I think our best bet here is to just make it a variant. And then it will behave like an array when we assign an array to it. This is really the only place, kind of this, where I'm going to take a string, I'm going to make it into an array, I need some variable to keep track of it. That's the main place that I, in my VBA development, use the variant type. I really don't use it for anything else. Okay, so now I'm going to say promos equals, and then I'm going to go pull the data out of that cell. What column is it in? Is it column H? And so that's the whole string, but I want to split it. So split that string, and then I will give it a comma as the delimiter. Now, something I'm going to be careful about is I want to see if there are spaces between here. Because there are no spaces here, but I can imagine someone coming in and saying, you know what, I'm going to put one or more spaces in here. So I think I'm going to want to deal with those as well. So I'm going to put a space in there, even though the data would work fine without it, but I want to anticipate that. So now I should have an array here. Maybe I'll dim x as an integer, so I can make a for loop to go across that array. For x equals 0 to the upper boundary of my array. Now, I don't think I showed you this But the original syntax for the for next loop, you would put the control variable both in the for clause and on the next clause. And so I'm just showing you that because sometimes it can make your code a little bit more readable, especially if you're nesting loops, which we're not going to do. But if you've got several next and it's not immediately clear which loop it pertains to, you can put the name there. And it's a little bit nice because remember, the next step doesn't just send you back up to the top, it gives you the next value of X as well. And so it's actually kind of nice to have it there. Let me just go ahead and do a debug.print. And I guess right here, what I'd like to do is I just want to see what those values are. So debug.print promos sub X, and maybe I'll also print X. So I should expect to see, was it 1 and 4? 1 and 4, but I've got a space on one of them. So I'm going to go ahead and run to that point. So I'll put a breakpoint here before I exit the sub procedure, and I'll run up to that point. PROMOS, what do I have here? We split that based on a comma. Oh, I'm probably not on the right row. Yeah, let me come up here to the row that has the data, and we'll stop that and try it again. Okay, so now here's where it's printed X, and then it's printed the number. So that's what we have in the array, and that's the index of the array. And you can see that the 4 has an extra space in front of it compared to the 1. So why don't I take this loop and I'll leave the printing there for a while, but how would I get rid of those spaces? Really 2 options. Right here, I have access to each one. I could use the function called trim to just kind of take those off individually, or I could use replace before I get here and say, you know what? I don't care if there's spaces in there. Let's just get rid of all the spaces before we split it. I guess since I've already written the loop, I'll go ahead and do it here. Well, I kind of like replacing it all before I get here even more. So promos equals trim, or promos sub X equals trim of promos sub X. And I'll do the printing now afterwards. So we should see that that is without the space. I'll just drag my yellow arrow back up there and run it again. So now we can see that space is no longer there. Okay, so now we've got a clean array. It's just now a matter of actually getting those selected. Now, as it turns out, the list box has some properties that are themselves arrays. Question here? Question is, trim takes off the leading and trailing spaces. That is correct. So, and it's a little bit different than the trim function if you're used to using it inside of Excel, because I think it will actually, trim inside of Excel will actually collapse multiple sequential spaces down to a single space inside the string as well. But in VBA, it's just leading and trailing spaces. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, so we have some arrays here. So I have, in fact, we've got 4 elements. Let me go ahead and just make another loop here to kind of do a little exploration here. So after I've printed those off, I'm going to say for X equals 0 to 3. Next. Debug.print LST promo, my list box, dot. Now, there's one here called items. It's called a list, sorry. There's a thing called list. It's an array that has all of the items that are available to choose from in that list. So if I print list promo sub X, let me go ahead and run up to this point here. X equals, oh, this was R over here. I'm in the wrong place. need to be in show data. Here's where my X is. And let me also print off the X just so we can see the index. So we can see that using the object, the control, I can get to the list property, and it's an array. Is it 0-based or 1-based? It's a 0-based array. Well, it's something you've got a little bit of experience working with. And so I have access to that array. There's another array. And this is the one that's going to be important for us. There's an array called selected. I'm going to clear this off and run that again. And what is selected? What data type do you think selected is? It's an array of Boolean variables. And so right now, every element in that array is false. It's the same size as the list array. Why is everyone false? Because none of them are selected. And that's the way that I'm going to actually select one, is by toggling the value in that selected array. So this was just so we can kind of see what was going on. Let me come in here and let's call this option 1. Thank you. That would still work. Option 1, which is to use the data to set the control. Of course, we're always going to use the data, but why don't we say scan the data? So here we're iterating across all the elements that are in the data. And now, for each one that's in the data then, I'm just going to set the selected property equal to true. Now, but the question is, which one? So here, I've got an array called promos that's holding the promos that are actually selected in the cell. And so promos, when X is 0, promos sub 0 has the index 1 in it. So, and I think these are numbered. Yeah, be a little bit easier for us if these were, if the indexes that are provided here were 0-based as well. But we don't expect our users to think in 0-based lists. We expect them to number things 1 through whatever. And so in this case, when we're printing off the 1, X is 0. So that's going to be 1, meaning the first one that's in the list. So which one do I actually want to set to true? When we have a 1 showing, which element or which item in the list do we want to have selected? Number 0. So it should be that minus 1. I'm going to go ahead and run. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and stop this and run everything. Get back and take off my breakpoint. And we'll run it. So we're on 1 and 4. And we can see number 1 and number 4 are selected. So that's one approach, is just look across the data and use those indices to select the right one. I'm not sure if that will be the easier way for the project or not, but let's take a look at the other way. The other way is to scan across all of these and see if its index number is in the list over here. My recollection is that this approach I'm about to show you will work better for the project that you have to work on. Okay, so option 2 is to scan the control and check the list. Okay, so for this one, we have this set up right now from 0 to 3, just because we knew that's what it was, but we're not gonna know what it is at runtime, so we're gonna have to figure this out. 0 is an okay place to start, because we'll start at 0. But we need some way to know how many items are in the list. Well, we could use ubound because we have the list here, but there's another property that specifically tells you how many items are in the list. And it's called the object, LST promo, dot, it's called the list index. No, it's called the list count. So how many items are in this list? Well, right now, how many are there? There are 4. And so I want my array to loop from 0 to 3. So I'm going to take list count minus 1. And so now in here, I need to ask, is the index number, actually, is the index number plus 1, is it in the list? So if we're going to look at the number that we're scanning across, when we have 0, that's the one that corresponds to 1. So 0 plus 1. I want to know if that is in the string. How do I tell if something's in the string? In string. So I'm going to start at the first position. I'm going to look at what is in the cell. I'm going to look for that particular number. So when I'm on number 0, I want to look for number 1 in the list. This will return the position of it, and it returns 0 if it's not found. Otherwise, it'll return 1, 2, 3, whichever one it found. So I'm going to say if that is greater than 0, then I've found one that I need to mark. And all I need to say is, in that case, my selected list, and the variable that I'm looking at right there, is equal to true. Let's see how this one does. And to be sure, I'm just going to comment out this whole loop up above. And there's a problem here that we're going to want to deal with as well. The question is there a shortcut? In VBA, there is no block comment. So most languages say comment starts here, comment ends here. So, but there is a tool that will comment, put a single quote in the front of everything that you have selected. And that is on your view toolbars, your debug toolbar. Oh, I'm sorry, your edit toolbar. I already have it showing. It's this one right here that shows a couple of different lines highlighted. So if I have several things selected, I can uncomment those, or I can comment them together. Yeah, why there's no block comment character in VBA, I have no good excuse for that. There should be, but there isn't. Was there a question over here? No. Question here? Really, you can comment a whole block out by selecting like that there and then clicking on the tool here that would unblock it. Excellent. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay. We're going to check this and make sure it highlights the same items. Make sure I'm on the same place I am. I'll run this. And that code gets me to the same place. There's kind of a hidden risk in here. What is going to happen? Let's suppose I've got 20 different promotions here. And so this one I actually have as number 10. And I don't have promotion number 1. I've got promotion 2. I've got promotions 2, 4, and 10. What is the problem? there is no 10. That's a problem. We can go make a 10. We can go, add them up till we get 10. But what is there's kind of a more fundamental problem here. Let me go ahead and run the code and let's see what it does. Well, it doesn't do anything because I'm not on that cell anymore. It has selected 1, 2, and 4. Why did it just select 1? Yeah, this approach says I'm looking for 1 in the string. Does it find 1 in that string? Yes, it does. So that's a problem that we're going to correct. Ready? So here, let's do this. Where we're doing the search, this is complex enough that I may go ahead and make a variable to deal with this. I'll do another variable here. I'm going to call this str search as a string. So that's going to be, I'm going to format the string that I'm actually looking for. So I'm going to start here by giving it a value, str search equals, and I'm just going to read the value off the worksheet. In fact, I may do a little processing on it right as it's coming in. Replace, and I'm going to look at the value on the sheet. I'm going to look for a space, and I'm going to replace it with a 0-length string. So we're going to put a value into this string. It is going to be whatever's in the cell, but we're replacing all the spaces with nothing. So we're taking out all the spaces out of it. So now we should just have numbers and commas. So now I'm going to add something else onto it. Search equals, I'm going to put a comma at the beginning of it. Then I will put the search string there. And then I'll put a comma at the end of it. I'm just putting an additional comma on the front and the back. Why would I do something like that? Let me I'm going to run my code right to here, and let's take a look at that search string. So now I know that every single entry in that list has a comma on both sides. And so now, instead of just searching for the index, I'm going to look in my search string down here. Instead of searching for the index I'm looking for, I'm going to actually search for that with leading in a trailing comma. That way, when I'm looking for 1, I'm actually looking for comma 1 comma, and does that show up here? No, comma 1 comma is not there. Comma 1 comma would be there if there was actually a 1 in the list. So here, I'm just going to concatenate onto this, comma in the front, concatenated with a comma in the back. And now that should prevent the inadvertent 1 from being selected. So now we've just got 2 and 4. 10 is not selected because there is no 10. We looked across the set was here. Someone put a 10 over there, but it's not meaningful this way. So there's that code. I will give you a moment with the code. Questions? One of the nice things about this approach is that if someone puts something in that cell that's not an option, it's not going to cause a problem. It won't get found. Whereas this approach up here, we're actually going to try to refer to it. So we'd have to put some kind of error handling in it when we got to that 10, and we would try to say, oh, refer to number 10. There is no 10, that would be a problem. So we might have to trap for that error. Or check to see if the number is above the number of elements that are in the list. Okay, so now we've gotten to where we can read the value off. Now we just got to write the value back in. And as you might have guessed, that too is also a little more complex. So I'm going to come down to save data. In fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and copy the loop that iterates across my combo box, or across my list box. Didn't copy the declaration of the variable, so dim x as an integer. I'll put a little comment here. Save the promos. So here, we're going to go across all of the elements, but we're going to do something very different with them. So what we need to do is we need to look at the items that are selected, and we've got to rebuild that string of that comma-separated variable string to drop it into the cell. For that, I'll need another variable. I'll just call it temp as a string. And then for each item, I'll just have an if statement here that just asks if it's selected. If lst promo dot selected sub x, then we've got something to add on to our string. So I'm just going to accumulate those values in this temporary variable. Temp equals what it used to be, concatenated with my next value, which is x, but when x is 0, what's the index I'm after? When x is 0, I want 1. And then I will concatenate a comma. Actually, let's put the comma on the front part of this. It's going to be what it is with, or what it used to be, with a comma. And then the number that I'm trying to put there. This will get us almost all the way there. After I'm done with the list, temp equals temp, and after I'm done building that list, I just have to write it out to the cell, which is column H. So that's going to equal my temp. So we should run this and see there's one little problem, although it's not a tremendous problem, but it should be something that we'll want to deal with. I'll go ahead and select 2 and 3. And let's see what it wrote into the cell. What's the problem? I got the extra comma there. Would that hurt me to have the extra comma there? With the approach that I'm taking, because I'm looking for the values surrounded by commas, that wouldn't be a problem. I mean, I would just, for the search, it would add an extra comma on the front, but that wouldn't be a problem for the way I'm looking at the values. Question? Question is, would I accumulate another comma? And the answer is no. Let's just go ahead and run it, and I'll prove it to you. I'll add another one in here. We'll say OK. And we still have just the one comma on the front. Because what we're doing is we're reading the data off, and we're putting it into the array. We're just indicating which one of those are selected, and we're building the string again from scratch. But it's really easy to get rid of. Instead of writing out temp, what do I want? In English, what do I want? What part of temp do I want? Everything to the right of the first comma. Well, we know the first character is going to be the comma. So we don't really care if it's a comma or not. We want everything from the second character on. Fortunately, there's a function for that. What's it called? Yeah, mid of temp starting at 2. And so now, even if I have that leading comma here, I'll just write that back out, and now we've gotten rid of that comma. We've got that. I'll go ahead and open it on this one. Let's see, we've got some spaces in here. We have a 10 that's irrelevant. I'll go ahead and run this again. Say OK, and that should have cleaned that up as well. So got rid of the spaces, got rid of the 10, which didn't mean anything. And so we're in good shape. So that code will be really helpful for you on the project. Questions? Let's take a look at some more controls. All right, back to the form. We've got the button, we've got the frame, we've done the option buttons. I wonder if we have anything for the checkbox. I don't really think we have any good checkbox data here. Oh, but you know what? We have this discount percent. Okay, so this is going to be a little more complicated. What are our different promotions that we have here? We have a discount. So when we have promotion number 4, we need to indicate what the percentage is. So if I look at the data over here, so this column here is only relevant if I have a 4 right here. If there's no 4 here, there shouldn't be any discount showing here. So let's go ahead and build that here as well. How do you want to handle that? Someone talk me through that. So what we need to do is we got to say, listen, if there's no 4, then we shouldn't be showing a discount percent. If there is a 4, we're going to need a discount percent.
We have something that basically says if they enter a 4, then it pops up with something that says, hey, what's the discount?
Okay, so one possibility would be to be on the form right here. And if somebody actually selects the 4, we could like pop up another box. What's the discount percent? We could do that, but we already have a box popped up here. Might be better just to say, oh, you know what? If they select that, we should give them a place to specify it. It should just show up. Doesn't have to be, kind of a separate process. You can just see it's only relevant if that's selected. Otherwise, it's not. So talk to me in terms. I like it. I think that's a good approach. So talk to me in terms of object and event. When do we want to make this magic happen to where we're showing something on the form or removing it? What object? What event? Object should be pretty straightforward. What's the object? Probably not the user form. It'll be somewhere on the user form. But the list box, yeah. So when something happens to the list box, then we're going to want to do something. I don't even know what we have to choose from. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to double click the list box. Comes up with a click. Click might be it. Let me just go ahead and see when this one executes. Debug.print now. So I'm going to want to see when that is executing. So I'm going to select one of these. I don't see it executing all. Shouldn't that be printing that debug.print now? List promo. I'm on list promo. I'm clicking. I don't like it. I really thought that would have done it. There's also a change. There's also an after update. I don't know what after update is. You got to get something to fire over there. For sure, change will do it. I say for sure. I kind of thought either of those other ones would too. Here's change. Now, problem is, that's already fired. So if we're going to use this one, we'll have to be careful. Because it's changing when we're loading. And now as I click one of these, it changes. Question? Oh, another idea. Go ahead.
I don't know if you want to do this, but you could make it that there's another like label box or text box underneath the list box. And the discount is selected, or I forget what column it's in, if there's a value in that column, or this is selected, they'll change the property of that label box that is editable. It changes the color of it so that you can deduct the discount out of the column.
Yeah, so the suggestion is we can just put a control here on the form for the discount and then only show it when it's relevant. That's where we're headed. We're going to try, but we have to figure out, because we definitely want that to change as the user changes the data. So the only one I'm seeing so far is the change. I'm really kind of surprised Click didn't do it. But let's just see if there's anything else to choose from. Enter, exit, before update. That must be happening when we leave. So here's the question. I bet after update will fire when we leave. Let's give that a shot. Here's after update, when it loses the focus. I'm not sure exactly when we want to have happen. Let's decide together. So that hasn't fired, otherwise it'd print the date here. If I, though, click off of it, still doesn't fire. I don't know when that fires. So I think we're stuck with using change as the event that we're going to have to respond to. The problem is it changes while we're loading it as well. So we're going to have to do something to let us know, hey, if we're loading this thing, don't be changing this. So let me just try one thing. A thought just popped into my head, and that is we can tell if the control has the focus. Let me remember how we can tell if the control has the focus. So when that changes, debug.print, let me see if there's a property. LST promo dot focus. I'm going to Google that really quick. Detect user form control focus. Which control has the focus? I'm not seeing it straight away. Command button. All right, we'll do it in an approach that doesn't look at the focus. All right, so the trick is while we're initializing, we don't want to be responding to the change event. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to create a module level variable, a Boolean variable called initializing. INITALIZING as Boolean. We will set initializing to true when we start loading. Or so when we start initializing, TI, initial TI. Is that how I spelled it? Yeah. Initializing equals true. Didn't spell it that way. Okay, so initializing equals true here. And then when we're done initializing, after we've shown the data, we'll set initializing to false. So now we can tell by looking at the initializing variable, are we initializing or not? So initializing will be true while the initializing or the user form initialize procedure is running. But now when the user clicks a promotion, then it won't be. So we'll just say if not initializing. Then we want to do something. What do we do? Right now, let's just print the time. So now I've got nothing showing in my immediate window. When I play it, even though we will come through, this promo change is going to get fired, that event will be fired, but because we're initializing while we're starting up, we shouldn't be printing this. So we didn't print the time anywhere, but now whenever I make a change here, we're now selecting. So now I think we're in good shape to be able to say, we want to be able to know, has the user selected the promotion, the discount promotion. And so for now, we're just going to assume that discount is going to stay in the number 3 position of the array. So we'll just say if LST promotion or LST promo dot selected sub 3, and that will be either true or false itself. I don't have to say it equals true. It is true or false. Then we'll do something else. We'll do something else. Right now, let's just print so that we can see that it's happening. Debug.print. Discount is selected. Discount not selected. Okay, so as I change it, we get discount not selected, not selected, not selected, is selected. So now we can tell, is it selected or not? So now we've got these 2 parts of the code that we can use to make some other control to display the discount or not. Question here?
Yeah, if we were to go in and we weren't changing any of the promotion, we just wanted to change the name, or what is that?
Yeah, change the name or change the category.
Something else. Would we still print that?
Would we print this? Oh yeah, if we never actually touch this, it won't print.
Okay. So basically that would erase anything that's currently there. Or not erase it.
So yeah, if we don't touch this, then it shouldn't change anything. That's the goal anyway. But we do want to make it so that the discount only shows when discount is selected. So let's go ahead and make that show the discount. Well, we're going to have to need, first of all, we're going to need a discount field in here. So let me come in here and create a label. And so my properties here, I'm going to call this LBL discount, changing the name. And let's go ahead and give it a value of discount. So we're going to be showing actually the label discount, but we're only going to show it when it's relevant. So discount, and the caption will be discount. Now we also want somewhere that the user can actually change what the discount is. So we're going to bring a text box in. I'm going to call this one TXT discount. All right. So now when we're initializing, I think we want to look to see, start off by saying, let's look at to see if the discount is selected. And if it is, when the thing's initializing, we want to show these. Otherwise, we want those to be false. So that'll be something that's happening when we're initializing. Or when we're showing the data. Do it when we're showing the data. So here, when we're showing the data is when we have loaded up that promotion box. At this point, let's just check. Let's say if LST promo dot selected sub 3, then else and if. We'll do two things in here. We'll say LBL discount dot visible equals, actually this is interesting. We don't even really need the if statement here because this expression itself will be true or false. When this is selected, we want the discount to be visible. So let's do this. Instead of the if statement, let's just set the visible property equal to the selected property of the third or the number 3 element in the array. And then we'll just select the text box's property equal to that one. So txt discount dot visible equals this. DIS. Thank you. We could do it with the if statement. If it's true, set these others to true. If it's false, that's true. But set the others to false. But we could just point it straight at those objects. Okay. And in fact, we want that same thing happening when we click the promo. So if we're not initializing, yeah, I think we'll just put that same code right here. No if statement needed. Run that and see what we get. The discount is showing. I turn off the discount and it goes away. I turn it back on and it shows. Turned on with something else and it shows. So that's pretty good. We just actually need to get the discount itself to be showing the value here. So again, that's going to be while we're reading that data in. So under show data, and this should be similar to what we did with the name. So I'm going to find the name. Ooh, we've got a lot happening in show data. Me.txt name, maybe I'll just do it right here. Me.txt discount equals HI, column I. So that'll put the value there. We need to do the same thing in reverse when we save with just a little bit more sophistication here. So at the point when we save, instead of just reversing this, we've got to do a little bit more logic around this. And so here what we want to do is we want to say, we got to do some data validation. And that is, if the user has selected that they're going to give a discount, but they haven't told me what the discount is, that's a problem. We don't want them to be able to save the data looking that way. And so let's go ahead and just alert them if that's the case. So let's do this. Let's say if LST promo dot selected, the number 3 position, that means there is a discount showing. I mean, they've selected discount. And txt discount, why don't we do this? If it's not numeric, and not is numeric, then we'll do something. I don't care what they put there. If it's not a number and it's showing, that's a problem. That's ISNUMERIC. Thank you. So this is display message box. MSG, BOX. Let's see. First argument is the message. When you select a discount, you must provide a discount percent. As a number. We could even do a little bit more in here. Now that we know it's, if we know it's numeric, once we know it's numeric, we could also check to see, is it between 0 and 1? And so we could say, hey, it's got to be in that as well. Let's see, our second argument is probably just an OK button is fine, but we'll put VB critical here. And then a title, input error. Users love it when you call it input error. Or maybe data entry error. I'm not doing anything with the return value, so no parentheses. So, if we've shown this message box, what should we do? We just told the user there's an error here. What should we do? Yeah, we should leave them right there. They're trying to close the form. But we shouldn't let them do that. In fact, we probably should do this before we save anything else. Let's do this data validation right at the very top of save data. You selected a discount, you gave me data that's no good, we're not gonna save anything. Well, how do we prevent all this other code from running? If we got into here. So it'll show up the message box, you're just gonna click OK, it's the only choice they have, we're gonna click OK, and then we can't end sub, we can exit the sub, right, get us out of here. Without the exit sub, we put up the message, hey, you gotta have that, and then we just go ahead and save the data anyway. Now we've got the 0.1% discount here. If I turn discount off, it goes away. I'll come in here and put, leave that blank. We'll say OK. When you select a discount, you got to provide the percent as a number. I did not expect that to end. What did we do wrong? Oh, this is the save data. Ugh. Save data is doing the exit sub when I click on that button. So let's just move this. Kind of the simplest solution here is let's take this and put it on the click of that button. I'm going to come back to the form. So before I save the data, I'll do the data validation here. So now when the user clicks OK, before we ever call the save data, we're going to say, let's validate the data. And if it is, we'll exit out of here, which will prevent us from either unloading or saving data. Let's try that again. Violate the condition, get the message, and it leaves us right here. If I don't have discount showing, I'll say OK. That should be just fine. What if I had some non-numeric data? Discount high. Turn that off. Do you think it's going to save the high out? I think it will. Yeah, we wrote that out. So what do you think? Should we let them do that? Or should we say, a couple of things we could say. If they don't have data selected, we could still leave a number there, or we could get rid of it. But we probably don't want nonsensical data to go in there. So there's a couple of options. One is, I'm only going to save that I think I would have to pass a parameter in here to save data. Let's see. The save data, no, we can do it this way. We'll come down to save data, and let's just clear that out if it's not selected. So again, if lst promo dot selected sub 3 That's going to be true or false. If that is true, I don't really want to do anything different. But if it's false, so if not, then txt discount dot value or text equals a zero length string. Just get rid of it. So we're saying when this is true, this would be they have selected a discount. I don't want to do anything. It's when it's not true. So if that's false, that's when I want to deal with it. So putting the not flips that condition to true, so it executes this code, and we'll just blank out whatever is there. So if there's no discount, we're just going to wipe it out. I think that's a fine way to handle it. Discount is high, turn that off, we'll say okay. And the discount percent, that discount high went away. That's the idea of data validation. It's one of the great things that user forms are for. The user puts all the information in. When they say okay, or save or whatever, we look over the whole thing and say, does this make sense, what you've done? And if not, we give them an appropriate error message and leave them there to fix the problem. Could create a cancel button that kind of bypasses the whole, say they just close without saving anything else out. It's exactly what would happen if they just clicked on this X here, so I think we're okay. Questions? All right, you now have everything that you need to be able to do the next project after Big Boggle, which is due Thursday night. All right, folks, thanks for coming. Class dismissed.